In a large industrial workshop, there is active work going on, the heat and light of blazing furnaces swirling around. The worker is enjoying the smell of the girl with a satisfied look. Another worker advises him to buy one for himself at a discount. The guard squad hurries to load the girls in the party, for the base will be transferred after she is taken out. There is a beautiful girl lying unconscious on the bed. She is dressed only in bandages and looks defenseless. A merchandise barcode with address, number, and other information is attached to the girl's hip. At night, 2 police officers stand in front of an unfinished building preparing for an operation. The operation commander receives a report that all squads have taken their positions. The commander gives the combat unit a command to follow, requiring other units to assist and coordinate. The team rushes forward to storm the base, rushing inside. The criminals discover the police and panic, deciding to flee immediately. Police officers demand surrender and promise not to kill if the criminals lay down their weapons. After the shootout, there are neutralized criminals lying on the floor next to guns and bloodstains. Officers are escorting detainees off base, situation under control. One of the employees looks around the room with the blue light and the many capsules, amazed at what he sees. The officer reports to the chief that the clandestine factories are getting bigger and bigger, and their flow is not drying up despite the constant captures. The manager reflects that since the advent of capital, the whole system has been permeated with blood and filth. Only the lower-level operators have been caught, and the real source has never been reached. The capsule contains a girl with long hair. She is clearly artificially grown and underwater. The assistant chief sighed that in the past 6 months, 90% of the illegal female clones had been ordered by the same person, a celebrity named Ye Tun Tong. The assistant, recalling what he saw, compares what happened to the opening of the gates of hell and doubts that an ordinary person would resist. Warden frowns at the chain in his hand, contemplating what is happening. The manager orders everyone to leave, and the question of clone placement to be referred to the appropriate department. He himself takes the day off. An aide jokes about a supervisor asking if he has enough vacation time to take a half day to say goodbye to his wife. A supervisor punishes a coworker with a light smack on the head for teasing. Morning comes. A city, street, and a tree with a bird. Pictured here is the beautiful bride and groom, the husband and wife in this story. In the morning, his wife sleeps sweetly, covered with a sheet, her face calmly brightened by the sun. The wife wakes up and, rubbing her eyes, sits up on the bed. While the wife is getting ready, the TV is talking about the capture of a new clone factory, led by Police Captain Zhou Yunfeng. The news release mentions that the operation was conducted in 3 phases and shows footage from the scene. The husband, meanwhile, is preparing food. In the kitchen, breakfast for his wife. His wife comes up to him with a hug and notes that he's back on TV. Zhou Yunfeng replies that he's not happy about the on-screen attention and suggests getting ready for breakfast. The wife is pleased that the food smells good. Laughing, his wife confesses that she likes his scrambled eggs best. The husband remarks with a smile that despite their years, they still act like lovers. The wife disagrees, as they have only been together for a year and considers herself still a young wife. She is sad and says she will miss her husband very much. Zhou Yunfeng gently replies that traveling to Africa for a month with medical assistance is not a tragedy, asks her to get ready and promises to take her to the airport after breakfast. They tell us on TV that illegal clones and human trafficking have become more and more widespread in recent years. The TV host summarizes that the problem exacerbates ethical and criminal issues in society. The girl hugs Zhou Yunfeng from behind, wondering if he would clone himself to be by her side if he didn't come back. She is sharply indignant, asking what he is doing. Zhou Yunfeng turns to her and says that he won't let anything happen to her until he falls down himself. He asks her not to say such things anymore because he wants to spend the rest of his life with her. The girl smiles, sweetly, slightly covering her mouth with her hand. She promises that she will definitely come back, and then they will live their lives together. The girl cheerfully hugs Zhou Yunfeng and asks him to carry her to the living room. He jokingly says that she still acts like a child. Zhou Yunfeng drags her around the apartment, carrying a plate as she continues to hug him. A car driving through city streets on a sunny day. The girl, already dressed differently, puts on pantyhose. In the car, she starts to change her clothes right in the back seat, taking off her sweater. Disgruntled wife demands a bra from Zhou Yunfeng. He says he's driving and asks why she's taking everything so slow this morning. She replies that she just doesn't want to break up with him. Zhou Yunfeng holds out a bra to her and jokingly warns her to fasten it well, or her breasts might fall out on the way. The girl playfully wonders if he likes the larger sizes. He, with an embarrassed scratch of his cheek, admits that he does. Jo Yun-fung adds that he is the only one who can love it. The girl suddenly reaches for him and kisses him passionately. The kiss continues as she hovers over him. The driver is reminded that the light is green and he is in a hurry to get to work. In response, an apology comes from the car. Jo Yun-fung says he's already gone. The girl smiles cheerfully, curled up in a chair in the back seat. The car pulls up to a large building that looks like a train station or airport. The girl walks forward with the suitcase. Jo Yun-fung looks after her. Before parting, he hugs her tightly. They gently hold each other, not wanting to let go. Jo Yun-fung gently touches her forehead. They look at each other with warmth. She leaves, asking Jo Yun-fung in parting to smoke less or she won't talk to him. He salutes her with a smile. Already alone, Jo Yun-fung rides in the car and calls his boss, asking if there are any assignments for him. In the course of the conversation, he hears jokes and notes that if the supervisor hadn't said no, he wouldn't have been hired. Jo Yun-fung admits that he is not used to sitting in the office. He is more comfortable working on the front lines. A colleague clarifies whether he has now seen off a girl named Xiao Shui. He replies that she's already on the plane. Jo Yun-fung says since she flew away, he can't sit idle and asks to be given a task sooner. The boss throws an instruction through. The phone to urgently go to Dao Cheng. Jo Yun-fung zealously replies that he understood and will immediately comply. Courtyard of an apartment complex is shown where people and police have gathered. Residents discuss that there was a case of cloning in apartment 23 again, but now it has been discovered and reported to the right place. Passers-by discuss the unpleasant occurrence, which has happened in their neighborhood before, and wonder what is happening to the former residents. They suggest that previous residents are being resold, resenting what is happening. Other commenters are happy that the culprit has been caught and think he should be severely punished. A crowd of people flock to the house with lots of police and commotion around. Jo Yun-fung stops passers-by in his car, announcing to them that the police are investigating and asking everyone to disperse. Shown is the house where the action takes place, Unit 23 in the Shandao Township apartment complex. The police hold back the gawkers, and Jo Yun-fung once again admonishes the crowd to all move away. The policeman recognizes Jo Yun-fung and greets him as his superior. Jo Yun-fung asks about the situation. It is explained to him that there is a dangerous person inside. Neighbors discuss the suspect, believing him to be a useless recluse who turned out to be a pervert. They blame the suspect for their parents' deaths and suspect he is doing something unworthy of a home. Living next door to him is scary to them. Jo Yun-fung sarcastically suggests that such knowledgeable neighbors should testify to the police. Neighbors immediately find reasons to leave and refuse to cooperate. A woman with long hair holding a knife appears in the doorway and addresses the audience. She asks Jo Yun-fung if they're done already and why he's late. A young female maid is apprehended in the room, as well as another young man. The young man and the girl with white hair look at each other anxiously. Jo Yun-fung is carefully watching what is happening. He asks to wait and give him some time. A woman with long hair watches the situation thoughtfully. She bows her head, contemplating her next course of action. The girl decides to let the detainees go. The maid girl rushes to her friend, worried about his condition. The maid checks to see if he's hurt, or if anything hurts. The young man says he would rather die than give her up, showing his determination. The maid hugs him, not wanting to lose him. The girl offers Jo Yun-fung to let the guy go, agreeing to go with him as long as he doesn't feel bad. The guy does not agree with such a decision, explaining that the maid is his only close person. Jo Yun-fung smokes thoughtfully while watching the couple. He reports that by law, clones are placed in an isolation area, and the guy himself, as a first-time offender, has to undergo a month of ethical re-education. The young man indignantly asks why they are being arrested, as they have not offended anyone. Jo Yun-fung explains that the law is not always just, but its enforcers are forced to obey for the sake of order. The guy doesn't understand why unjust laws should be enforced, believing that there should be no such thing. Jo Yun-fung says the law is the last frontier of society's morality, and breaking it is dangerous for everyone. He suggests imagining the situation. If the law doesn't protect clones and someone takes the girl by force, what would the guy do? He replies that he would fight to the death. Jo Yun-fung quickly twists the guy to the floor. He emphasizes, even if the guy had witnessed the crime, his weakness would have prevented him from making a difference. The girl in tears asks to let the guy go and agrees to leave with Jo Yun-fung. Jo Yun-fung lets go of the guy, allowing him to stand up. A girl with white hair helps a man with glasses to his feet who looks exhausted. She hugs the man, and he, though embarrassed, responds with the same hug with a storm of emotion. Jo Yun-fung, observing the sincerity shown, decides to make an exception and offers a way out of the situation. The guy and the girl are surprised, not expecting this turn of events. Jo Yun-fung clarifies whether the guy is willing to give up everything for a girl named Xiao Lun. The guy confidently declares that he's willing to do anything if he can be there for her. Jo Yun-fung, sighing deeply, says that such things, although rare, have happened before. He explains that the law does not prohibit citizens from visiting the isolation zone. Jo Yun-fung adds that this has conditions. As he leaves the room, a woman with long brown hair stops him and asks him if he did well. Jo Yun-fung complains that being an enforcer of the law is not an easy task. The woman sternly inquired if there were any other questions. She asked Jo Yun-fung to come with her. Jo Yun-fung follows the woman down the corridor. The woman reports that illegal clone deals have reached a new level. Jo Yun-fung is surprised to hear this news. They look inside the lab cabinet. Jo Yun-fung was amazed at the contents he saw. Inside is strange equipment and a bag of green liquid. The woman specifies that the criminals have already developed new technology. It represents a laboratory where clones are grown in capsules under the strict control of armed guards. The process is now broken down into smaller units. Buyers can grow clones at home, and it's become even more secretive. Jo Yun-fung is annoyed and angry at the criminals. He pulls out his phone and starts checking messages. The woman asks what's wrong. He says, assuming that perhaps the airline is calling. After all, his wife is traveling. Jo Yun-fung speculates that the girl might have lost her phone, as she often forgets things. He answers the phone, smiling affably. His face changes quickly. He's wary because of what he's heard. Upon hearing the news, Jo Yun-fung looks shocked. He reacts sharply, almost shouting into the tube, clarifying what he heard. The woman is surprised at his reaction. Jo Yun-fung panics and demands an explanation of what's going on, asking to be told as soon as possible. Receiving a curt reply, he immediately rushes to help. The woman, acting as commander, instructs her subordinates to secure the family, disperse the gawkers, and prepare for new actions. She tries to catch up with Jo Yun-fung, hurrying after him to find out the details. In her haste, the woman hurts her leg. She stopped, then continued running barefoot. The woman quickly catches up with Jo Yun-fung despite the inconvenience. Jo Yun-fung is already getting behind the wheel, declaring that he is taking time off and the woman should handle her own affairs. The woman resolutely gets into the car, not intending to stop. She asks, did something really happen? Does it have something to do with Xiao Shui? Jo Yun-fung hurriedly drove, promising to explain everything along the way. He pulls out in a hurry. The car pulls away abruptly. The situation becomes tense because Jo almost hit a pedestrian. Jo Yun-fung's companion suggests turning on the siren to clear the road. Jo Yun-fung replies that he can't use the siren as it is a private matter. He tenses up and thinks for a moment in the car. Jo Yun-fung is worried. Xiaoju's plane has disappeared from radar. He doesn't believe it could have happened to her. He wonders why the girl went along with him and asks her that question. The companion is confused and may not immediately respond. She explains that she noticed that something had happened to Yun-fung and had never seen him so agitated and confused. Jo Yun-fung notices that the companion is acting strangely as well and asks how she knows that it is Xiao Zhe who is involved. The girl replies that only Xiao Zhe could have knocked him out so much, for even on the battlefield, he remained calm. After that, the girl gets a call. She picks up the phone. The girl listens intently to the call, wondering what is happening. She reports that they are on their way to the scene. Jo Yun-fung looks anxiously at her companion, waiting for an explanation. He elaborates on what happened. The girl replies that now this incident is not just about them. She pulls out a flashing beacon. She demands to go faster and attaches a beacon to the roof of the car. The car, siren on, rushes through the streets at full speed. Jo Yun-fung is entirely focused on driving, his gaze collected and purposeful. The sky over the airport is covered with dark clouds. The situation is tense. In the waiting room, people are worried and supportive of each other because of the airplane incident. Agitated passengers and relatives are demanding airport workers to break the news about their loved ones. A hysterical woman threatens employees if her husband dies. The man is outraged. His daughter was on that plane, and he can't wait. He reports that their family has been supportive of their daughter's studies and demands that a search be initiated immediately. The airport employee politely asks to wait and promises to provide information promptly. People in the audience are worried and struggling to remain calm. They are urged not to create panic. Jo Yun-fung makes his way through the crowd, showing his police ID card. A woman rushes to him asking him to find her husband. She explains in tears that her husband is the backbone of their entire family. Yun-fung is approached by another man, asking to enlist military resources for the search. As he only has one daughter, Jo Yun-fung is saddened to see the suffering of the native passengers. He's asking people to give a pass so he doesn't waste time gathering information. Jo Yun-fung goes out with a companion to the airport clerk to get information. He asks her if she is responsible for what is happening here. The woman confirms that she is in charge of the situation. He invites her to talk separately to discuss the details. The clerk explains that an urgent request has been made to International Aviation Services for a rescue operation. At the meeting, officers report that they have been contacted by passing airplanes and ships in the area to assist in the search. Search and rescue operations are shown. A helicopter and a ship are involved in the operation. The control center is still trying to re-establish communication with the missing flight. The control room is coordinating with the embassy to request military assistance from local authorities. Jo Yun-fung has to admit that everything possible has been done. He asks about the chances of survival based on the number of days after disappearance. The woman with glasses says that even after a year, there have been cases where people have been found. Jo Yun-fung demands to be provided with all available statistics. It is explained to him the probability of survival on the first day is 78%, on the second day 47%, on the third day 26%, on the seventh day 1%, and beyond that it becomes almost impossible. The woman is worried when she hears this, and Jo Yun-fung's hand rushes towards her, stopping her. Jo Yun-fung calmly notes that he understood the situation. He gets up and leaves the meeting room, leaving the staff in thoughtfulness. He is met on the way out by concerned relatives of the missing passengers. They rush to him, hoping to get any news of contact with the missing plane. Among those gathered, Jo Yun-fung explains that the airport and police are using every possible way to communicate and promised to report any news. But a disgruntled man shouts that it's been an hour and no news, expressing dissatisfaction with the level of work. Others support him, accusing the police of negligence, because the lives of many are at stake. Jo Yun-fung admits that his newly married wife is also on that flight. The man is stunned by the unexpected confession. The crowd is surprised by Jo Yun-fung's words. The man apologizes to him for being abrupt. Jo Yun-fung urges people to go back and rest in the meeting room, promising to report back when any information becomes available. The relatives look alarmed but agree to the suggestion. Jo Yun-fung walks out of the building with a co-worker, acquaintance, outside. Yun-fung tries to light a cigarette while in thought. At that moment, he recalls the words of his beloved, asking him to smoke less while she was away, or she would be offended. His companion sits down next to him, suddenly slipping and sitting on the ground. She feels pain in her leg and touches it with her hand. Jo Yun-fung notices this and wonders if she hurt her foot, perhaps when she was chasing him. The girl replies that it's no big deal and recalls an incident from the past. She recalls how in the army she chased criminals barefoot through the mountains with him. Jo Yun-fung walks away and the girl watches him with surprise. She asks where he's going and he replies that he's going to buy her shoes. The girl is surprised by Jo Yun-fung's concern. She wanted to name her shoe size, but he guesses her size correctly himself, saying he won't forget. Girl playfully encourages him to hurry up and buy shoes. Jo Yun-fung confirms with a slight smile that he understood everything. He walks forward, intent on doing something about it, and his companion follows. The girl stares after him, thinking about something important. Then, Jo Yun-fung, the girl, and other staff members had already gathered in the building, discussing the new documents. On the street, Jo Yun-fung is on the phone, looking at a passing airplane, immersed in his thoughts. In the flight control center, staff and experts are tensely watching numerous screens, tracking the missing flight, while Jo Yun-fung watches the situation in the hall. The secretary, worried, reports something over the phone, and Jo Yun-fung enters the office with the girl. The secretary's face shows the tension and anxiety of what is happening. In another compartment, a team of pilots and operators are looking for a solution, while Jo Yun-fung is pensive and deep in thought. Jo Yun-fung looks extremely focused and wary as he tries to analyze the situation. In the room waiting for the survival probability results, people are depressed. Jo Yun-fung and his partner stand waiting. A frightening survival rate of only 1% is emerging. The staff is desperate. One of the employees lowers his head in despair. The atmosphere is heavy. A woman with a tearful face hugs another woman tightly, tears rolling down her cheeks. Jo Yun-fung turns away, walking away towards the wall, his companion staying slightly behind. The companion observes Jo Yun-fung, who looks depressed and immersed in himself. The companion bows her head, showing her sadness and concern. Jo Yun-fung's phone starts vibrating in his pocket. An incoming call from an unknown number is displayed on the phone screen. Jo Yun-fung is surprised by this call and warily looks at the phone. He asks his partner to trace his cell phone. The partner contacts tech services to trace the source of the mysterious call. Jo Yun-fung demands to know who is calling him, and he hears back a sentence: resurrection of deceased loved ones. Jo Yun-fung asks where they got his data from, and the interlocutor talks about resurrecting his wife. The image of his wife comes to mind, and Jo Yun-fung becomes sad. He explains that his wife is officially listed as missing, a distressed Jo. Yun-fung rebukes the mysterious interlocutor and threatens punishment. Suddenly he hears a phrase in response: cops are people too. Jo Yun-fung nervously asks her partner if the call was traced. The characters are walking down the hallway. Both are nervous. The conversation on the phones continues. Jo Yun-fung emphasizes, a clone cannot become a real person. It is only a copy. Unidentified explains that with the new equipment and data, AI will be able to recreate the personality and memory of the deceased almost perfectly. Jo Yun-fung's eyes widen with surprise and alarm. The unidentified person informs you that the call is being terminated due to attempts to trace it, and offers to continue communication via messages. The call cuts off, despite Jo Yun-fung's desperate attempts to talk further. Jo Yun-fung looks at the phone in confusion, his companion watching him carefully. His partner worriedly asks what happened. Jo Yun-fung says that in the past, the clone's memory and personality were limited to templates, but now technology allows them to almost completely recreate the original. He observes that it is hard for ordinary people to resist such temptation. The partner is shocked at how fast technology is advancing. At this point, both of their phones start ringing at the same time. Throughout the room, people get a similar call and start answering it. One of the employees picks up the phone. His expression changes. He is puzzled about something. Jo Yun-fung tries to stop everyone by yelling at them not to answer the phone. One of the workers continues to listen to the voice on the phone despite the alarm. Jo Yun-fung reacts with horror at what is happening. People gathered in the audience are warned not to accept invitations for illegal cloning and reminded that a clone does not replace the original. They also promise to do everything possible to find the missing relatives. People in the audience are anxious, waiting for news on the phone. They leave, still on the phone, immersed in their thoughts. The atmosphere in the room remains tense, with employees continuing to communicate with each other. Jo Yun-fung walks next to a woman with long brown hair, both looking focused and anxious. The woman addresses Jo Yun-fung, calling him Old Joe. Jo Yun-fung stares into the distance, hiding his emotions. The woman assures that Xiao Xue will definitely come back. Jo Yun-fung lowers his head, experiencing heavy feelings. He reflects on the fact that the words missing persons are only the last hope for their families. The girl admits that this is not what she really wanted to say, but the man asks to let him go for a few days. The woman offers to drive him, but he asks to just let him know of any new developments if any information comes to light. The woman stares after him, clearly worried about his condition. The woman is left alone, holding onto the collar of her shirt, wincing in alarm. Jo Yun-fung returns home and stands in front of the closed door. He slowly places his hand on the doorknob. When he opens the door, his wife, wearing a colorful t-shirt, greets him cheerfully with words, but in reality, Jo Yun-fung is standing in a dark room. Reality is harsh and grim. He walks into the living room surrounded by memories, including looking at a family photo on the wall. Jo Yun-fung sits down on the sofa, sinking into ennui and hopelessness, bows his head, staring at the floor in sorrow. Memories take him back in time, where his wife tells him that she got the marriage certificate while he was busy working. The wife happily says they will pick out the rings together, and she also has a gift. Jo Yun-fung remains sitting on the sofa, memories stirring his mind. In the semi-darkness, he lights a cigarette. He sits in a dark room procrastinating, alone with his thoughts. In the memoir, the wife declares that they are now officially husband and wife. She dances around the room, expressing joy and happiness. Xiao Xue smiles at Jo Yun-fung, filled with love. She hugs him gently, asking him to call her wife. Xiao Xue hands him the pendant with the words that they are now each other's only family. She explains that inside the pendant is her blood, and each of them will wear one. Xiao Xue says her pendant has his blood in it, to remember their first encounter on the battlefield. She adds that these pendants are very important to them. You can't lose them. Xiao Xue promises to always carry her pendant with her. Jo Yun-fung holds the pendant in her hand, experiencing strong emotions. Tears protrude in Jo Yun-fung's eyes. He presses the pendant to his face. Suddenly, the silence is broken by the ringing of the phone. Jo Yun-fung anxiously looks at the screen of the incoming call. He gets a call from an unknown number and prepares to answer. Jo Yun-fung answers the phone, expressing annoyance and threats. The voice on the phone tells you he's a potential client because he didn't disconnect the call right away. Jo Yun-fung resents the suggestion of breaking the law, but the interlocutor insists that any new needs eventually become legal. The interlocutor points out that Jo Yun-fung helps criminals he sympathizes with. Jo Yun-fung panics and asks how the interlocutor knows everything, but the conversation is cut short. At the end of the conversation, he is told how to utilize the services if he is interested. Jo Yun-fung remains pensive, looking at his phone. Immersed in thought, he walks away from the phone and looks across the room. The protagonist is experiencing heavy emotions, lowering his gaze. As morning arrives, the city comes alive under the bright sunshine. A girl with long hair walks up to the apartment door with a package in her hand. She knocks on the door, letting me know she's come to say something. The girl persistently knocks and calls out Jo Yun-fung's name. Jo Yun-fung hears her voice coming through the door. The girl finally meets Jo Yun-fung's gaze as he opens the door. Jo Yun-fung is surprised by her visit and asks why she came since his vacation isn't over yet. The girl is briefly silent, gathering her thoughts before further conversation. She says she didn't come as a boss but as an old comrade, just to visit Jo Yun-fung. Jo Yun-fung replies that he's fine and wonders about her well-being. The girl notices Jo Yun-fung's strange behavior. He keeps the curtains closed in the middle of the day. Jo Yun-fung looks depressed and questions her real purpose of the visit. The girl spreads the bottles she brought on the table. She says she's not ready to talk and admits she brought homemade alcohol she got from her father. The girl drinks some of the alcohol she brought in. The remaining bottle is placed dramatically on the table. Spilling some of the liquid, she is surprised to notice that the drink is very strong. Jo Yun-fung looks at her a little confused. She asks him if his tolerance for alcohol has diminished since leaving the service. Jo Yun-fung picks up a few bottles and prepares to accept the challenge. The protagonist greedily drinks alcohol without giving in to the girl. They continue to drink together, competing with each other. Both are passionately pouring themselves another round of shots, vying for staying power. The girl's smile and blush indicate her cheerful state from the alcohol. The girl can no longer continue competing, leaning on the table, and Jo Yun-fung is still holding on. A change of perspective shows the two standing at a table in the background of the kitchen and continuing to drink. A new morning dawn illuminates the houses of the city, changing the scene. Girl suddenly hears her phone ringing as she sits at her desk. She, barely regaining consciousness, hardly realizes it's the phone ringing. Taking the phone in her hands, the girl is convinced it's not hers. Jo Yun-fung confirms that it is his phone, taking it back. Jo Yun-fung, with all signs of fatigue and excitement, picks up the phone and answers the call. He hopes to hear something important, but there is silence on the phone. Annoyed, he ends the call. Jo Yun-fung is nervous because he's being offered a funeral for some ball and even a VVIP event, even though someone is only missing. He is annoyed that the companies making money from rituals are boring him with their offers. He complains that he has received a lot of calls from such companies in a few days. The competition has become very strong. The girl chides him for answering annoying calls, even though she knows it's spam. He explains that he can't not respond, afraid he'll miss the news about the missing person. His anxiety is making him shake. He's crying, so afraid of his phone being disconnected that he's already topped up his account for 6 months in advance. The girl gets upset too and holds back. Tears. Horrified. She turns away and tries not to show emotion. She continues to feel hurt and embarrassed about the situation. She assures Jo Yun-fung that the missing person will return and asks him not to do anything stupid. He says he's not going to do anything bad to himself because if he disappears, the memory of the missing woman will disappear too, even if it doesn't make sense. But he wants her memory to live longer. Unable to cope with his emotions, he starts drinking from the bottle. After drinking, he gets sick and starts coughing. Jo Yun-fung sadly notes that he is getting older. He used to be able to drink more, and now he gets drunk quickly, but he's even better this way because he won't think about sad things. The girl looks at Jo Yun-fung with a concerned look. She too decides to drink to support him or deal with her emotions. Finished, she quickly leaves the room, not wanting to stay any longer. Leaving the house, she gets behind the wheel and drives off into the night to an unknown destination. Behind the wheel, she is full of determination and inner tension. She recalls someone asking her to do the impossible, which involved her profession and even breaking the law. She arrives at the cabin in the woods where the meeting is scheduled. She meets a girl named Xiao Xue and retells again that the act she is being induced to do is illegal. Xiao Xue begs Ting not to complicate things and admits that she won't get in the way if she refuses. Xiao Xue decides to disappear completely, leaving only a clone in his place so that he can be by Zhou Yunfeng's side. Ting doubts Xiao Xue's motive and wants to know the reason for this decision. Xiao Xu bitterly says that Zhou Yunfeng's health has deteriorated again. Tin is amazed at what she's heard and wants more details. Xiao Xu explains that like Dolly, the first clone sheep, the clones have a shorter lifespan because they genetically take the age of the original. She says she used advanced technology to rejuvenate his body, but it has side effects. The side effect is that the physical degradation of the body goes much faster. Tin is worried and asks how much time he has left. Xiao Xue tearfully replies that it's about 10 years. She confesses that she didn't lose him last time thanks to Ting, and now she can't let it happen again. Xiao Xue can't imagine her life without him. The girl shows some kind of data carrier that contains her memory and personality traits. Xiao Xue says she made a deal with interested people to get funding and equipment for clone life extension, research, fully dedicating herself to science. But Tin doesn't know what she means. Xiao Xue turns to Sister Ting and places the flash drive in her hand. Xiao Xue tearfully handed over an important task. Tin arrives by car in the night forest and walks, with a flashlight, expressing determination. She moves slowly through the forest, lighting her way in the darkness. Arriving at the forest cabin, Tin rushes inside, guided by the light. Tin cautiously steps inside the house, holding a flashlight and looking around. Inside, the house looks abandoned, furniture covered in dust and clutter everywhere. She's looking for something, trying to move one of the cabinets in the room. On the floor, she discovers a trapdoor, opening it slightly. Opening the hatch, Tin looks down warily and prepares to descend. She walks down the stairs, holding the flashlight in her mouth to free her hands. She is greeted downstairs by an empty room with a door with a buzzing sound coming from it. She finds a strange unit connected by wires to a bathtub filled with liquid. Inside the bathtub is a girl with long, dark hair in a resting state. Tin watches the tub carefully, standing in front of it and observing what's going on. Image of Zhou Yunfeng, filled with grief and tears, flashes before her eyes. She pulls out the device, prepared to use it. Tin inserts the device into the black box, activating the system. The instruction from the unit starts the process of loading the large memory base and transferring the data to the clone. 2 months pass. 2 months. The moonlit night once again covers the forest hut. During this time, the girl in the tub is fully formed and saturated with golden light. The block tells you that the recipient has reached the correct age and will soon be activated. Tin prepares a tool and incisors the sheath around the girl in the tub. The shell opens up, and the girl gradually begins to come to her senses. She rises slowly from the liquid, still weak and disoriented. Tin watches the girl's awakening, standing next to the bathtub. The girl, not yet fully recovered, remains in the tub, breathing heavily. The frame focuses on her face as she blinks and realizes what is happening. Suddenly, she tenses up sharply, all anxious. Tin leans over to her as the girl begins to panic and gasp. The girl bursts out and starts choking on the liquid. She spits out the murky liquid, finally clearing her airway. Tin helps her out and supports her while she coughs. Tin, worried, asks the girl by name, guessing who she is. The girl is breathing heavily, having trouble assessing the situation around her. She begins to slowly come to her senses, taking deep breaths. The girl turns to Tin and calls her sister Tin. Tin, exhaling in relief, realizes that it all worked out. Xiao Xue tries to thank Ting for her help, barely choosing her words. She continues to be aware of herself and her surroundings. Ting informs her that things are very bad with Zhou Yunfeng's condition. Xiao Xue's face reflects anxiety and shock. Ting watches Xiao Xue worriedly. As she asks about Zhou Yunfeng, Xiao Xue quickly jumped out of the water, resolutely leaving the room. Ting tries to stop Xiao Xue, but she runs towards the door. Ting calls out to Xiao Xue, reminding her that she's not dressed and that she needs to get her hair in order or her cover will be blown. Ting cuts Xiao Xue's hair to completely change her appearance. Xiao Xue is worried and wants to contact Yunfeng first to make sure he's okay. Ting says she'll call herself, but Xiao Xue starts to change her clothes in the meantime. Xiao Xue hurriedly put on clean clothes. After changing clothes, Xiao Xue asks Ting if she was able to contact Yunfeng. Ting reports that Yunfeng's phone is turned off, which makes Xiao Xue even more worried. Ting takes Xiao Xue's hand, noticing how nervous she is. Xiao Xue offers to hit the road and change clothes along the way, asking to be told about Yunfeng's condition. The car pulls out on the highway at night through a dense forest. Ting drives. Xiao Xue sits beside him and remains silent. Ting watches Xiaoxu carefully, as if she was about to talk to her about something important. Ting shares her thoughts. The words Yunfeng said about Xiaoxu the day before showed her how important she is to him. Ting admits that she envies Xiaosui because not everyone gets to meet a man like Yunfeng. Xiaosui, touched, says she is jealous of herself. She has tears in her eyes. Xiaoxui asks for her phone number to try to reach Yunfeng herself, attempts to call to no avail. The answering machine informs that the number is unavailable. Xiaoxui is upset. She mentally demands that Yunfeng pick up the phone. Tin tries to calm her down and suggests changing the story of what happened, since Yunfeng will likely figure out the truth. Xiaoxui voices her legend. She was on a humanitarian mission in Africa, lost her memory after the accident, and only remembered that she was Chinese. That's how she was found. Ting clarifies that the real Xiaoxue disappeared in a plane crash. Xiaoxu was stunned by what she heard. She didn't know all the details of the real incident. Xiaoxu dumbfoundedly asks how this could happen, to which Ting looks serious. Ting says that when Yunfeng was on vacation, she reviewed the accident reports herself and found something suspicious about Xiaoxu in them. She explains that on that flight were experts from developed fields: medicine, pharmaceuticals, life sciences, artificial intelligence. Xiaoxu is visibly nervous after hearing this. Ting bluntly asks if Xiaoxu knows anything about a possible connection between these events. Xiaoxu denies her knowledge. The deal was only with that girl. She corrects briefly, with herself. Ting promises to continue her secret investigation and reminds her that she has prepared a legend for Xiaoxue that cannot be confused. Xiaoxu agrees and is going to make no mistakes. Ting repeats the details of the legend. After the incident, Xiaoxu was found by an expedition and she doesn't remember anything because of her head injury. Xiaoxu fears that authorities will want to track down her rescuers to investigate the plane crash. Tin thoughtfully contemplates the problem and options. Ting then forcefully says that the rescuers were just good people who didn't leave names, and Xiaoxu should remember that. Xiaoxu was dumbfounded, realizing the complexity of the situation. Along the way, they talk about good Samaritans, traveling by car at night. Ting and Xiaoxu run out of the gate of the building, hurrying towards the man. The girls notice that the light in Zhou Yunfeng's room is on, and Xiaoxue assumes that he just discharged his phone. Reaching the door, Ting demands that Yunfeng open the door, and Xiaoxue looks at her anxiously. Ting and Xiaoxue listened puzzledly, trying to figure out what was going on inside. Tin leans against the door and reports that something is moving inside. The girls begin to knock loudly and call out to Zhou Yunfeng, demanding that he open the door. Xiaoxue is worried and asks if something bad has happened to him. Ting asks Xiaoxu not to panic and tells her to stand back, stating that she will open the door herself. Tin steps back, preparing to force open the door with force. Tin picks up the acceleration toward the door. The door opens, and Tin looks inward in surprise. It came out kind of awkward. Tin just flew through the open door. Inside, Ting suddenly falls right on top of Zhou Yunfeng, who has traces of fatigue on his face. Ting looks at Yunfeng with embarrassment, and he too looks surprised by her appearance. Xiaoxue enters the room and sees Ting and Yunfeng together on the floor. Yunfeng can't find words. Yunfeng saw the girl in front of him and fell into a stupor. Xiaoxue walks over to Yunfeng. He looks up at her from below. Yunfeng, noticing Xiaoxue, whispers the word, wife. Xiaoxue looks at him in surprise, and Ting hears it. Ting diverts her attention, making a sign to Xiaoxue not to continue further, lest suspicion arise. Ting nods, reminding her friend about memory loss to cover for Yunfeng. Xiaoxue stares thoughtfully with her hand to her mouth. Her gaze fills with emotion, and she presses her lips together determinedly. Yunfeng rushes over to Xiaoxue, hugging her tightly. Xiaoxu expresses surprise and joy while in Yunfeng's embrace. She snuggles even tighter to him, her eyes filled with light and happiness. Happy! Xiaoxu smiles as she closes her eyes in Yunfeng's embrace. Tin silently watches their embrace, standing off to the side. Suddenly, something catches the girl's attention. Suddenly, a mysterious girl with long black hair appears from the next room. The girl is completely naked, her hair falling down, covering her body. Is this another Xiaoxue? Xiaoxue, seeing the girl, turns to ask her if it's Yunfeng. Yunfeng and Xiaoxue turn around in amazement. The naked girl asks in amazement who all these people are. Ting stares intently at Yunfeng, waiting for an explanation. Yunfeng and Xiaoxue stand face to face, clearly embarrassed by the situation. I think the wifey's getting angry. Yunfeng starts stuttering, not knowing what to say. Xiaoxu cries, a tear rolling down her cheek. No one knows what to do next. Everyone stands at attention. Ting and Xiaoxu quickly run away, looking back in alarm. Ting let out a sigh of relief, glad that she wasn't caught. With Xiaoxue and Zhou Yunfeng standing nearby, someone brings up Dr. Yan, but another person recalls that she died in a plane crash, suggesting that she's just a woman who often visits Officer Zhou. Tin resents the rumors being spread about her. She anxiously turns to Zhou Yunfeng, asking what's going on here. Xiaoxu and Zhou Yunfeng were confused, not knowing what to say. A girl with long hair, covered only by her hair, appears in the corridor. Xiaoxu and Zhou Yunfeng noticed her. The girl with long hair is clearly confused and embarrassed. All three of them, Ting, Xiaoxue, and Zhou Yunfeng, stand in the room watching the stranger. Well, it's actually Xiaoxue. Xiaoxue asks Ting if Zhou Yunfeng is really her husband. Zhou Yunfeng is perplexed and asks Xiaoxue what happened to her. The girl with the long hair is in a slight stupor from what is happening. She feels uncomfortable and insecure as she continues to cover herself with her hair. Xiaoxue and Zhou Yunfeng's wedding photo hangs on the wall, causing the girl with long hair to look puzzled. The girl with long hair is shocked by what she sees. She walks away thinking about it, feeling like a stranger in the midst of what is happening. Her emotions overwhelm her and she begins to cry, feeling lost. Ting and Xiaoxue, holding hands, quickly leave. Ting glares menacingly at Zhou Yunfeng, suspecting something amiss. The girls and Zhou Yunfeng stop and look at the girl with long hair who appeared. Zhou Yunfeng is confused, trying to make sense of the situation. Zhou Yunfeng approaches the girl with long hair. Xiaoxu is scared and nervous. Xiaoxu averts her gaze, and Zhou Yunfeng tensely watches her. Xiaoxue is indignant and clearly angry, and Zhou Yunfeng is surprised by her reaction. The girl with long hair and Xiaoxue stand opposite each other, tension rising between them. Xiaoxue gently takes the girl with long hair by the hand, showing her support. Xiaoxu kindly explains to the girl with long hair that she should first take a shower, tidy up, and choose her clothes. The girl with long hair and Xiaoxue look at each other. Xiaoxu tries to cheer her up. The girl with long hair thanks Xiaoxu for her support and care. Xiaoxu leads the girl to the bathroom while continuing to hold her hand. After they leave, Zhou Yunfeng and Ting are left alone. Ting and Zhou Yunfeng walk inside the living room, each thinking about what happened. Zhou Yunfeng asks Ting a question about what's going on with Xiaoxue. While Zhou Yunfeng is worried, Ting tiredly sits down on the sofa. Ting looks at Zhou Yunfeng tiredly and coldly, waiting for an explanation. Ting then raises his voice with irritation, accusing Zhou Yunfeng of being weird. Meanwhile, the long-haired girl's hair is already soaped up and she's taking a shower. Xiaoxue helps the girl with long hair to wash herself, caring for her in the bathtub. The girl watches Xiaoxue gratefully and cautiously, succumbing to her care. Xiaoxue sat next to the bathtub, looking at her interlocutor thoughtfully, as if she was about to say something. A sadness appeared on her face, and she looked upset. Xiaoxu pondered how she should look at herself, and how she should appear in front of Zhou Yunfeng. She didn't really know who she really was. The girl in the bathroom was upset and apologized, feeling guilty. She was on the verge of tears, not hiding her feelings. Xiaoxue supported her, talking about how she always felt lonely after her parents died and dreamed of having a sister. She smiled, saying that her dream had come true just for today. The girl in the bathroom was genuinely stunned by such words and could not contain her emotions. She, a little embarrassed, asked if she could call Xiaoxue her sister. The girl was visibly embarrassed, not knowing where to avert her eyes. She was scared and timidly asked Xiaoxu not to do that, causing her to feel embarrassed. Xiaoxu tried to make a joke and revealed that she had always wanted to try this if she got a sister. Meanwhile, in the room, Zhou Yunfeng and Ting were sitting on the sofa, waiting for a conversation. Zhou Yunfeng looked worried and wondered if that girl really didn't remember anything. Tin eyed him suspiciously. She was angry at Zhou Yunfeng, and he got a smack on the head from her for his worries. Tin tried to explain that the most important thing was the girl's safety, and he was worrying about her memories for nothing. She reproached him for breaking the law. Zhou Yunfeng suddenly reached into his pocket. He placed some kind of envelope on the table. She listened attentively to Zhou Yunfeng, who had finally gathered his thoughts. He told me that he wanted to run away with his girlfriend to a country where clones are not persecuted, to live together in hiding. Tin looked around. Little chance they were being followed. Tin said he should understand for himself. All the clones' feelings were an artificial program, and how could he mistake such emotions for real ones? Zhou Yunfeng recognized that she was right and knew him well. He remembered how the clone's customization menu had appeared and made a yes or no choice. A question label was displayed, and at the bottom, Jo Yun-fung mentally admitted that he didn't choose artificial scent settings. Tin was surprised. She asked what choice he had made then. At that moment, there was a click of the door. Someone entered. Two girls with short hair entered the room, holding each other's hands. One of the girls wore a white t-shirt, the other a pink one. They stood side by side, looking at the people present in surprise. Jo Yun-fung and Ting looked at them with astonishment. They couldn't believe their eyes, seeing both Xiaoshui in front of them at once. There was silence in the hall. Tin was surprised, and seemed to want to say something. She noted to herself that they were exactly the same and couldn't tell them apart. Jo Yun-feng looked attentive and very serious. He explained that these girls are actually completely different people, despite their complete outward resemblance. The girls moved closer and looked at each other, and Ting wondered at the musings of Jo Yun-feng, who had previously seemed not to be a particularly deep person. Jo Yun-feng silently observed what was happening. He reasoned, one of them understands the heart, and the other knows it deeply. Tin thought about what he said, and agreed that it was indeed beautiful that way. The house was lit up in the evening, lights burning in the windows. Life was going on. All the characters gathered in the living room, sat in groups across from each other, and were silent. The girls were sad and slightly depressed by this silence. Jo Yun-feng was immersed in his thoughts, sitting in front of the rest of the company. Tin looked stern, clearly displeased with the lingering silence. The girls and Jo Yun-feng looked at each other in surprise, expecting something. Tin couldn't stand it and asked loudly why everyone just kept quiet and didn't want to say anything. Jo Yun-feng and one of the girls felt uncomfortable with the situation. Do you want to know what happens next? Will his new wives live with him? What kind of relationship will they have? Let's get 1,000 likes on this, because like you, I really want to do part 2. Write the secret word, clone, in the comments. That way I'll know you've seen it all the way to the end. See you later and bye-bye.